All right. Like Triple H likes to say, it's time to play the game. We have 8 teams remaining in the playoff fields for the NFL. It is divisional round weekends. This is one of my favorite weekends of the year. It actually might be my favorite because we have 8 teams left. Because next weekends, we're only going to have 2 games. And so this is the last weekends where we really have like that full slate of games, and then it feels like everything starts to dwindle down. So I'm really gonna be soaking it in this weekend. And people like to throw this word around a lot, but it really applies to the nature of the NFL right now. There's a lot of parity. There's a lot of parity. We're already seeing the impact of not having Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow in the playoffs. It just makes things so much more wide open and competitive. And I'm going to get into that in this show here. First and foremost, I want to shout out my guy, Zeke Wager. He got me a phenomenal Christmas gift this year, and I'm wearing it right now. It is a Rutgers Scarlet Knights t-shirt. I have a soft spot for Rutgers. I like the run they had back in '07. And of course, I'm wearing this shirt proudly for one person only, and that person is James Gandolfini, i.e. Tony Soprano. Rest in peace. That's my guy always. But I got to represent him, got to represent the Sopranos and the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. So thank you, Zeke Wager, for that shirt. You're the man for that. We got an exciting slate this weekend. Saturday, 2 great games. Got the Bills going up to Mile High. We've got a rematch, a third matchup between the 49ers and the Seahawks. We got Texans and Patriots on Sunday. And then we end the weekend off with Rams and Bears. So, without further ado, let's get into our first prediction of the show. We are going to start this thing off with Bills and Broncos. You got the Bills traveling up to the high altitude, up to Denver, Colorado, to take on these Denver Broncos. And this matchup is so intriguing on so many levels. So, one matchup that I love for Buffalo is their run defense going up against Denver's rushing attack. Because Denver's rushing attack is very middle of the pack. I'll say they're 15th in the NFL when it comes to rushing yards per game. And the Bills, they haven't exactly been known for their run defense at all this year. But if there's one day where they can start to slow one down, they can start to slow an attack down, it is against this Broncos rushing attack, because it's very assy. It's hit or miss. If they have a good day, that could spell bad news for the Bills. If it's a midday running the ball for Denver, I think that could help Buffalo. Like that is their weak point. I will say too, the matchup of Buffalo's O-line and Denver's defensive line concerns me a little bit. I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Josh Allen. I think they're going to make his afternoon hell, because I've had questions about the Bills' offensive line this year. It continues to kind of expose, and you're facing one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. I mean, Denver is number 1 in the NFL right now when it comes to sack rate, and so they're going to get to Josh Allen. And Denver has a phenomenal secondary as well. And Buffalo's receivers, I've been with, they've struggled with getting separation at times this year. But because Denver's run game isn't as prolific as some of the other attacks, like they're not throwing any Travis Etienne at you. So I love that matchup for Buffalo. And while those factors I laid out may sound like disadvantages to Buffalo, that's Denver's biggest line of attack on the Bills. It's Denver's biggest advantage that they'd have on the Bills on Saturday. And I outline all that to say that I really believe that Buffalo has the one differentiating factor that's going to enable them to win this game. And that is number 17. And I know it sounds cliche, but I promise you it's not. Because when Josh Allen is under pressure, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when it comes to responding to. I mean, look at that play that he had on Sunday, that bomb that he had to Brandon Cooks that put the Bills in field goal range on that last drive on Sunday against the Jags. That the Jags dialed up pressure. He sat right there, recognized it, located Brandon Cooks downfield. Boom. I think he can hit some of those throws on Saturday because Denver's going to dial up pressure. I mean, Vance Joseph is going to dial up pressures. He's been doing it all year. He's going to do it against Buffalo on Saturday as well. But Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when it comes to recognizing that. And regardless of how good Denver's defensive front is, I think that James Cook is still going to get going as well. I think that he's still going to get cooking. And so that's an advantage for Buffalo as well. And then Denver's secondary, as suffocating as it is, that is their greatest line of defense. And in the NFL right now, there's not a more confident thrower. There's not a more assured thrower. There's not a quarterback in the NFL that's better at making pinpoint passes and putting the ball exactly where it wants it to be than Josh Allen. So Denver's three biggest factors: their pass rush against Buffalo's O-line and their secondary. I think Buffalo can overcome all of that. And the altitude, the conditions, that's another thing that would catch a lot of teams captive. Like I worried about, a Houston having to come up there, right? Or the Chargers having to come back up there. Buffalo is used to the cold weather. They're used to the elements. They're used to the blusteriness that they would face up in Denver. And it's not even going to be that cold of a day. It's not going to be that windy of a day. It's going to be around 46 degrees at kick. So it's not even going to be that windy. It's not even going to be much of a factor. So Buffalo can overcome that as well. The Bills, most importantly, are a more experienced team than Denver. And that's going to go a long way here. Now, it's kind of like your Alabama teams later in Nick Saban's tenure. Were there things I didn't like about them? Yeah. But teams that have that kind of experience, when they continue to escape, like Buffalo did in Jacksonville this past weekend, they build confidence. And against a team like Denver, who hasn't had much playoff experience as of recent, I just don't think it matches up very well for the Broncos. They're also a young team that had a week off. I think there will be some rust there. Bo Nix, that offense, has struggled to turn it on in the first half. I can't see it being any different on Saturday. And as great as Denver's defense is, it's going to get tired at some point. And even though they've had some rest, it's going to be a struggle trying to contain Josh Allen and his attack all afternoon. And when you go back and look at a lot of Denver's games this year, their defense looked phenomenal against the Chiefs with Chris Olakadon. They looked phenomenal against the Commanders without Jaden Daniels. They looked great against the Chargers with a bad O-line. The minute you threw Jacksonville at them, they didn't have an answer. And I think that Josh Allen is gonna pick that secondary apart, just like Trevor Lawrence did when he was up there a few weeks ago. The Broncos are favored by 1.5. This is essentially a pick'em. But I'm going to be honest. I like the Buffalo Bills here. I think that they're going to make a real run in these playoffs. And I like the Bills pull off in a close defensive thriller. I think it's going to be one of the best fourth quarters we see in the playoffs with Josh Allen and Bo Nix going back and forth. But give me the Bills to win this thing, 21-17. There's my prediction. All right. Now we've got Saturday's nightcap between the Seahawks and the 49ers. Like I said in the last episode, and like I said in some of my CFP episodes previewing matchups, there is nothing better when you get conference foes playing each other for a third time in the playoffs, especially when it's these two. I mean, this is pure entertainment. I love the fierceness, the bitterness of this rivalry. Seahawks, 49ers. They just recently played. They just played 2 weeks ago. And you saw how that played out. The Seahawks ran up and down the field on the 49ers, but they struggled to capitalize on opportunities. Whereas the Niners just had a rough night offensively. Couldn't get anything going with the run game. Couldn't get anything going in the pass game either. Like they just had a slow, stagnant game. Well, that is in the rearview mirror now, and I'm looking through the windshields at this game. Totally new game. I think it will look different optically. It's important to note that even though San Francisco pulled that win off against the Eagles this past Sunday, their offense still looked very clunky. Brock Purdy made some puzzling throws at times. It didn't look perfect. It didn't look buttoned up from an offensive standpoint, but they did enough and they capitalized on Philly's mistakes to win that game. And Philly couldn't get anything going offensively. I mean, there was a point in the third quarter where I really felt like an Eagle avalanche was about to unfold. And then it just never did because the offense was disjointed just like it's been all year. I'll only tell you whose offense isn't disjointed. The Seattle Seahawks. And I know the concern of a lot of people with this game is going to be, oh, well, it's playoff Sam Darnold. I don't think we're going to see that this year. I think it's actually going to take a level up. You know, throwing to guys like JSN, like Cooper Kupp. I think he's actually going to level up this year. And I think Sam Darnold is going to have a solid performance because there's just something about that Rams game a few weeks ago when he was down spiraling. In the past year, he continued to down spiral. He got it under control, and he bounced back. He delivered. The Seahawks pulled this game off. I think this is a different version of Sam Darnold this year, and I'm one of those guys like I'm not easy to be like, oh, this is a new him, you know, new year, new me. But I kind of feel that way about Sam Darnold here. The 49ers are going to have to get something going offensively. And I think they will. I think that it'll look better than the matchup we saw a few weeks ago. I think they'll be able to lean into McCaffrey a little bit, get the Pistons pumping, get Jawan Jennings open, but it's going to be a challenge for the Niners here, especially not having George Kittle. That's a huge disadvantage. And if they were to win this game, it'd be great to get Fred Warner back at least. But I think that this will be the matchup here where the absences that the 49ers have, no Kittle, no Fred Warner, no Nick Bosa, I think that this is where it finally catches up to them. It's going to at some point. I love this Niners team. I respect this Niners team. It's very well coached. I just think that Sam Darnold and JSN are going to get cooking in this game. I think they may blow the top off in the second half, and at a certain point, it's just going to be a little bit too overwhelming for the Niners. And so the Seahawks are favored by a touchdown and a half in this game. I personally think that's a little disrespectful to San Francisco. I'd probably put around 5.5, maybe 5. But still, give me the Seahawks to win this game. I think when all is said and done, it'll be 28-20. Seattle pulls this off. All right. I feel like these two teams have met a lot in the playoffs. And each time they've seen each other, it's been the Texans playing Tom Brady. Well, the Texans don't have to worry about Tom Brady here. It's Drake May, but he's also one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL right now. You know, he had a shaky start, a shaky first half against the Chargers. The second half, he really started to get into rhythm. And I think that this game optically is going to look a lot like that Patriots-Chargers game did this past weekend. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a defensive game. The Texans O-line has been a concern for me all year long. I mean, they struggled to contain even average pass rushes. And even up against New England's pass rush on Sunday, I mean, they sacked Justin Herbert 6 times. They're going to get to C.J. Stroud. But the Patriots O-line is facing what I'd say is, I know statistically, numbers-wise, Denver's the best pass rusher of the NFL. But watching teams recently, there is none that's more imposing, none that's more of a threat than this Texans defensive line, this Texans pass rush. And don't forget, the Patriots allowed 5 sacks on Sunday against the Chargers D-line, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good D-line. It's not Houston. They're going to sack Drake May's ass a lot on Sunday. And I also want to mention, too, this Texans cornerback room. I mean, in your second playoff game ever for Drake May, you're going up against Derek Stingley Jr. and Lassiter. That is not ideal at all. I think that they're going to give him some looks on Sunday afternoon. That's going to confuse him. You know, I think that Matt Burke is going to draw up some stuff that's going to throw Drake May out of his rhythm. Because especially, like I said, first half, you saw it against the Chargers. You know, he had to really ease into that game, and I think that at Houston is going to make it very challenging for Drake May to ease into this game. I think they're going to make him uncomfortable early on. I think that he will eventually get into rhythm. I think this will be a close, gritty game because I have questions about the consistency of Houston's offense as well. And especially, it's more likely than not because it's concussion protocol. Nico Collins isn't going to be playing in this game. And so, Houston struggled against Pittsburgh's defense, which is good, not great. No, I felt like C.J. Stroud at times was trying to force shit that wasn't there. They had to ease into that. But I think on Sunday, Woody Marks will be a difference maker. I think that, once again, Christian Kirk will step up. I think Dalton Schultz will be a good option on Sunday as well. And so it's going to be a gritty, physical game. It's going to be 35 and clear. So cold for those Texans. And usually a dome team going up north doesn't work out well. But because of the way that the Texans play, that doesn't concern me here. I think that they're kind of an exception to that rule. The Patriots are favored by field goal. They're favored by 3 points. But I think that it's Houston that will win this game by a field goal, 23-20. Another low scorer. I think we're going to have some low scoring, but yet again, thrilling games this weekend, and this will be one of them. All right. The Windy City. Coming off of one of the Bears' most prolific playoff wins in recent history. The Bears welcome Sean McVay and Matt Stafford to town. The unfortunate thing is, though, it's not going to be windy at all. It will be around the teens at kickoff, and so that's definitely something to take into account with a dome team, a warm weather team like the Rams coming to town. Like I said, the Bears are coming off of a really emotional win. You saw Ben Johnson in that locker room. You saw how much it meant to Caleb Williams, to Colston Loveland, all the guys in that locker room, all the Bears fans. You saw how much it meant. They're up here right now. And the Rams are coming off of a game where it's like, man, thank God we escaped that. How embarrassing would it have been to lose to an 8-9 team in the first round, especially a Panthers team that beat you a couple weeks ago. You're Super Bowl favorite, and you're going to lose to them twice in 1 year. It was scary, and I think that there was some nerves for the Rams about that game because the minute things weren't going their way, you saw them clench up, you saw them get nervous. The Panthers just matched up really well. And I think that the Rams are just grateful to get out of that unscathed. And I actually think that they match up better with the Bears than they did the Panthers. It was a huge win the Bears had over the Packers, beating a division rival. Now you've got a lock back in. You've got a couple extra days of rest both of these teams have, which is huge. That's really advantageous for both of these teams to have that kind of rest going into this game. The one thing that I want to monitor here is the health of Matt Stafford's hand. According to reports right now, he avoided a major injury. But if that Bears defensive line is able to hit him a couple times and tries to hit that hand, I mean, you know how Austin Booker plays. He's probably going to try to go after that hand at points. You saw what he's done to Jordan Love these past couple weeks. He's probably going to try to go after Matt Stafford's hand at points. I mean, that's what any smart defense would do. Attack the weakness of your opponent. Will it resurface? Will the pain resurface? Will that pointer finger be affected? And how will that release, or how will that impact Matt Stafford's release? He should be good to go, but it's going to be cold. Those joints, those muscles, they're going to contract. They're going to get stiff. It's going to be important for him to keep that wrist, that hand warm on the sideline. So that is going to be a challenge for Matt Stafford. But as much as I like the Bears secondary, I'm always going to put my trust in Davante Adams and Puka Nacua. I think there's an argument that is the best wide receiver duo in the NFL right now. When Puka gets cooking, you just can't stop it. And now you got guys like Colby Parkinson, Tyler Higbee stepping up. The biggest factor for the Rams in this game is going to be how do you slow down Colston Loveland? Because that guy is on an absolute heater right now. He for good reason has been Caleb Williams' most sought after target, and for good reason. The guy is incredibly reliable. I mean, especially even for a rookie, that guy has been phenomenal. He's been like virtually unguardable recently. So how do you incorporate that in your game plan? How do you take Colston Loveland out? That's going to be something for the Rams to monitor, to prepare for here. But when I assess this, it's almost like that Denver-Buffalo matchup again. There's a lot of emotions, but you've got a young team, a team in the Bears that hasn't been in this position a lot. Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, Davante Adams, they've seen this before. They've been to this dance before. You know, I know that there's some injuries you're looking at. Matt Stafford's hand, Davante Adams still getting into form. But I think that this matchup still favors the Rams. The Rams are favored by a field goal and a half on the road in Soldier Fields. It's going to be in the teens kicking off, so that's going to be tough for them to acclimate to. But I still like the Rams to pull this off. And what I think is going to be yet another absolute thriller. I think that they win this thing 30-27. There's my prediction. All right, so I got a question here in the comments from Levi Sweeney. What are your thoughts on Mike Tomlin leaving Pittsburgh? Well, let me clear my throat. I'll leave y'all with this. It was time. It was time. Sometimes things just run its course. And I think that the relationship between Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers had run its course. However, in this modern day and age, I feel like in sports, we're always looking at, well, what's our next option? This guy isn't working out. Let's go get somebody else. It's time for a change. It's time for a change. It's going to be tough to replace a guy like Mike Tomlin just because he's such a great developer of talent. He's such a great motivator, leader of men. Yes, I used it, that term, a leader of men. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it was the right decision. It had to be done. Pittsburgh hadn't won a playoff game since January of 2017. That is way far below the standard of that organization, of that fan base. And so I understand that it was time to make a change, and it sounds like Mike Tomlin was part of that. Like, he was the one that asked to step down. Was it, stepping down before getting fired? Maybe, yeah. And that optically looks better at times, but it was inevitable, and it sounded like right now he's going to end up taking a break from coaching for at least this year. If he goes somewhere else, it could even be a trade. Maybe you get that John Harbaugh for Mike Tomlin trade, which would be probably the craziest head coach trade in NFL history. I think it's going to happen, though. It sounds like he wants to take a year off, figure things out. Maybe he becomes an analyst. I'm not sure. But those are my thoughts on Mike Tomlin leaving Pittsburgh. It was just time for it to happen. But let me know what y'all think about my predictions and that whole Mike Tomlin situation in the comment section below. It's been a lot of fun hopping on here. I'm excited to have another weekend. It's going to be an absolute blast. Wildcard Weekend set a standard for what these playoffs can be, and I hope that this weekend continues to live up to that. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.